Mesachas Pesachim Daf Tzadi Zayin. The Mishnah before in Tzadi Vav and Beis says Halacha Mibishur Shemati Shetmuas Pesach Kreva Utmuas Pesach Eini Kreva Eini Lefarish. And the Mishnah explains that if the first Pesach was lost and you found it again at the time of the Akrovas Pesach, then it's Chalad Tchiyah, an Apsul of Tchiyah in the korban that's here and was not brought, and therefore it's Eini Kreva. However, if it's found after the Hakrova, then it's not possible. The machlokas in the Gemara, Rabba and Reb Zeira, Rabba says that the Tchiyah is totally in if it's found at the time of the Shechit of the Korban Pesach. However, Reb Zeira says it's totally in the time of Chatzot. That means if the original korban, the first korban that was already hufrash and was lost, was found at the time of Chatzos, and you makriv the second korban, then you mafresh afterwards, so the first korban is nidcha. However, if you find it after Chatzos, then it's not nidcha. However, Rabbah says it's totally in Zman Shchita. The Tzlach says that the opinion of Reb Zeira is very hard to understand. Why is Tchiyah totally in the time of Chatzos? The Chorah Rabbah is very easy to understand that at the time of Shechita, when you be makriv the korban, you makriv the second korban, the first korban is here, so it's a Tchiyah, as if you're pushing away the first korban. However, Chatzos is not at the time of Akrova, it's the beginning of the time that you can make a Shechita. But why is Tchiyah totally in the time of Chatzos? So the Tzlach says a chiddush to explain this. He says that there's a halachas mavur, there's a mitzvah to be makriv the korban that's here first. And he says there's two ways to define what's the first korban. Either it's the first one for Afrosha, or the first one that's Roy and Oimit and Chozi for Akrova. So therefore the Tzlach says that if the original korban was found after Chatzos, so at the time of Chatzos, only the second korban, the korban that you mafresh later, is here and it's ready for Akrova, so that second korban that was here first was the first one that was fit and oimid for Akrova. So therefore the mitzvah is to bring that, because that is the Rishon. The second one, which is the first, that's Chozil Akrova, is the Rishon. And since it's the mitzvah, specifically the second one, and not the first one, therefore it's not no psul of Tchiyah. You're not pushing off the first one, because the first one is not Roy. The mitzvah is the second one, which was the first one that's Roy Akrova. Ein Reblei Malin, which we mentioned in the Yisoid Advarim in the Shir on the Ein Gimel, that according to his Yisoid, it's mavur different teretz to this kasha, that he says that there's two separate halachas in that the Moise Pesach is karev shelamim. One is that it's halach of Moisvis, that a korban Pesach that's not roy anymore for korban Pesach becomes a shelamim. The same way it's mavur, other karbanas have moises like it's mavur in the Mishnah in Shkolim. And there's another halacha that even before a moiser, lo higia oid zman the koveia b'teres Pesach, it's koveia b'teres shelamim, then the ikar hagdish of korban Pesach is included also, that it could be koveia also for shelamim. So therefore, Blave says that specifically at the time of Chatzos, the korban becomes a korban Pesach, specifically a korban Pesach. Before Chatzos, it was a shelamim and a Pesach, and had in the Kedosh of the Korban Pesach also an aspect of Korban Shelamim. However, at the time of Chatzos, it became specifically a Korban Pesach, so therefore it's Shapir Toli. In the time of Chatzos, the Din Tchiyah, because at the time of Chatzos, it's koveia, the Korban that's Oimid Akrova has a status of totally a Korban Pesach and not a Korban Shelamim. Moving further on, the Gemara on the bottom of Tzadi Vav and Beis, we learned in the pasuk in Kesef, the rabbis, Pesach Shavuos Shnosno, Ushlam Abon machmas Pesach, V'chol mitzvahs Pesach, Shton Smicha, Nesachim, Tuvas Chazav Shoik. It's not mavur in the Gemara regarding the Zman of Achila Shlomim, Haboim machmas Pesach. The Teres Koinim is mavur that according to Chachamim, the Shlomim Haboim machmas Pesach is Nechal L'yoim V'layla. However, Ben Azai says that's only Nechal B'layla, and it's Nechal specifically B'tzli. The Ravid explains that the understanding in the machlokes Chachamim and Ben Azai, according to Chachamim, it's a korban shelamim, but it has the chumras of a korban Pesach, so therefore it gets a limited zman achila of korban shelamim, like Shalmi Nazir and Toida, that's only nechel and v'layla, not like regular korban shelamim, that's nechel is the shnei yomim. However, Ben Azai holds it has a din of like a korban pesach, if it's nechel b'tzli, and only b'layla. Ein the Mikdash David declares a chakira in that's mavur, that's shlomo bo machmas pesach, it's only nechelas yom v'layla, like a korban pesach, and not l'shnei yomim v'layla echel, like a regular korban shlomim, is the pshat that it's a mechudesh dika korban shlomim. A shlomo bo machmas pesach has a new status of a korban shlomim that has a limited zman achila only of loim v'layla, or no, b'yesoidoi, a shlomo bo machmas pesach has a regular halacha of a korban shlomim, but since it's bo machmas pesach, so therefore it retains the chumras of the original korban pesach, and the same way the original korban pesach is not nechelis nishnayomim, so what in shlom machmas pesach, bo machmas pesach also is limited to yom v'layla. He says nafkamina would be if the korban gets a mum and schil ba'acher, is the second korban also nechelis only the yom echad? If that it's only nechel yom echad, it's because ikar dinoi that the shlom is only nechel yom echad. So therefore, what din? If you mechalan, if the korban also nechelis only yom echad, but if it's only because of the chumrah of the korban pesach, that's bo machmas say, so that's limited to the first korban, and it will not go over to the second korban that you mechalan on. Ein shom is ma'ir to bring machlik. So shoynim in this nekuda. I know sameach to ask on the chacham that's nechel yom v'layla. The ma'aser korban pesach itself is only nechelis the b'layla, not b'yoyim. He says that's not midin achilas korban of the korban pesach. It's the mesuyim de galacha in the achilas korban pesach, not midin hakorban of the korban pesach. The Biskarov in Stencils and Zvachim asks that according to Belazar ben Azariah, it should be only nechel until Chatzot, the same way korban pesach is nechel is only until Chatzot. He brings from Chaim that korban pesach is only nechel the Chatzot is not din in the korban. It's halacha in the mitzvahs achilas of korban pesach, the same as halacha that it has to be nechel, but sli that's not a din in the korban. I showed before in the Samaches, we umayich in this nekuda, but Reb Chaim's name gone. It's not a loch in the korban, so therefore it's specifically in the korban pesach itself, and not shlom ba machmas pesach. Ayin your barrel in the Shurim and Zvachim that says according to Ben Azai that learns out that's nechel only b'layla and it's nechel only b'tzli. So you see that's not only dinim of the korban that you're comparing shlom ba machmas pesach to pesach, even halachis that on them are in the mitzvahs achila of a korban pesach is chal in the shlomim as well. So Beryl says if that's the case, and according to Belazar ben Azariah, it could be it's nechel only until Chatzos, the same way korban pesach itself is nechel only in Chatzos. Moving further on the Gemara, Tzadi Zayin and Beis brings a loch of Rabbi Shia. Hifish te Chatzos la'achrayis miskape ba'achas mehem v'asheni tira. Tosis asks, how could you have two chatois on one korban? If you makdish one korban to the chatos and afterwards a second korban, it's nachal kedusha on the second one because it can't be mafresh two chatois for one avera. And vasachas can't be chal because kol shein b'zeh fil vasachas say no. So Tosis says he said one has a kedusha's korban chatos and the other one is v'achrayis. Ein de minchas avram and zvachim that brings from the Biskarov that be'emes is tzorachin. If it's for achrayis, that means you made a t'nai that the second korban it's only chal the kedusha if you can't be yotz with the first one. So therefore, if you yotz with the first one, so then the second korban is like chulin. So how could it be roya? It doesn't have a kedusha's korban b'chlal. So Biskarov on the said that Yisif Tais understands that it's not a t'nai that on a condition that if this korban won't be needed to go out l'chulin, it's achrayis, it's a backup, and it's a chalois achrayis, that the second korban is backing up the first korban, and it was nischadish over here, that even though it can't be chal a second korban chatos for the same aver, but chiv achrayis, it could be chal, and on that, there is a din roya. Ayin Karen Oira and Menachis that argues on Tosis Hanocha that you can't be mafish two karbonis for one chatos. He says since you weren't yet mechaper with the first chatos, so therefore you could be it's chal the kedusha on the second korban chatos. Ayin Rashi and Tmura that Chavov it's more bigger chiddush that even someone that's not mechuyev a korban chatos b'chal could be makdish or korban chatos and chal or kedusha's chatos.